Gordon Ramsay faces insult from waiter in his own restaurant. You won't believe what happens next. Imagine this. You walk into one of the most famous restaurants in the world, where the food is world-renowned and the chef is a legend. You take your seat, ready for an unforgettable experience. But what if, in the middle of your meal, you saw the unthinkable happen? A rookie waiter, barely a few days on the job, insults the very person who built the empire you're dining in, none other than Gordon Ramsay himself. And here's the kicker. Gordon Ramsay, the man known for his explosive temper, his tough-as-nails persona, is sitting at the table, hearing every word. You're thinking, this is going to get ugly. But instead of blowing up, Gordon does something no one expects, and it's a plot twist you have to see to believe. Stick around, because what happens next will change the way you see not only Gordon Ramsay, but how we handle mistakes in the real world. The evening at Gordon Ramsay's flagship restaurant was buzzing with energy. It was one of those nights where everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. The kind of night where every table was full, the kitchen was running smoothly, and the staff was in sync, moving like clockwork. The air was rich with the scent of freshly prepared dishes, the sound of kitchen staff communicating with precision, and the hum of conversations from patrons who had made reservations weeks in advance. Gordon Ramsay, the mastermind behind it all, stood at the center of the storm, overseeing the kitchen, making sure every plate was perfect. Gordon had built his empire from the ground up. He was no stranger to the pressure, the late nights, the sweat, and the constant demand for perfection. His name had become synonymous with high standards and world-class culinary skills, and his restaurant was a reflection of his life's work. People came from across the globe to experience the magic he created, not just through his food, but through the atmosphere he cultivated, a place where excellence was the only option. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a monument to Gordon's unrelenting passion for food, and he treated it as such. On this particular night, Gordon sat at a corner table, enjoying the rare opportunity to have dinner in his own restaurant, something he rarely did. It wasn't because he didn't love his food. It was because the demands of his career usually kept him too busy in the kitchen or managing his empire. But tonight, he was there, surrounded by his staff, taking in the energy of his restaurant, observing everything quietly, allowing himself to blend in as just another patron for once. As he scanned the room, taking in the familiar faces of regular customers and the new ones eager to experience the magic of his cuisine, a young waiter named Alex stood nervously in the back, adjusting his apron and glancing around the restaurant, trying to gauge the atmosphere. It was only his second week working at the restaurant, and despite his excitement about being in such a prestigious place, Alex couldn't shake the nerves that made his palms sweat and his heart race. He had heard the stories, how Gordon Ramsay could be tough, demanding, and not afraid to tear someone down when they fell short. And yet, for some reason, he thought he could manage the pressure. After all, he was a hard worker, eager to prove himself in one of the finest kitchens in the world. But nothing could prepare him for what was about to unfold. Alex had been assigned to serve a VIP table tonight, a table where Gordon himself was seated. He didn't know who he was dealing with at first. The nervousness in his voice was apparent as he approached the table and greeted Gordon with a smile. He had seen Gordon on television, but he didn't make the connection at first. Gordon was just another customer tonight, right? But then, as he made small talk with the other waitstaff, a comment slipped out, unintentional but loaded with meaning. Gordon Ramsay, seriously. They pay that guy to scream at people on TV. What's the big deal? He's just a celebrity chef. Nothing special. The words were out of Alex's mouth before he could stop them, a careless comment made in passing, perhaps hoping to bond with the other staff who snickered lightly in agreement. But the words, as flippant as they were, couldn't have been more out of place. They hung in the air for a moment, not immediately noticed by the others, but by one person, Gordon Ramsay himself. And that was the moment everything shifted. Alex had no idea who was sitting at the table. No idea that the very man he had just insulted was the owner of the restaurant he had just started working at. Gordon had heard every word. The once bustling restaurant fell into a brief but deafening silence. There was a collective pause, a moment where time seemed to slow down. Everyone in the vicinity, whether they were aware of it or not, felt the shift. It wasn't the loud, explosive scene everyone was expecting. No one was screaming or shouting. But the tension was undeniable. Gordon's gaze slowly lifted from his plate, and his eyes locked onto Alex. The moment stretched, and Alex, sensing the change, immediately regretted the words that had just left his mouth. His stomach dropped, his mind racing, trying to figure out a way to take it all back. But it was too late. Gordon had already heard, already processed the insult, and now it was time to deal with the consequences. For a brief moment, Alex stood frozen, trying to gauge the severity of the situation. His heart was pounding in his chest. Was Gordon going to yell at him? Fire him on the spot? He had heard the stories about Gordon's temper, about how he would humiliate people in front of others. But this time, there was a quiet intensity in Gordon's eyes, a gaze that seemed to pierce through Alex, searching for something beyond the insult, beyond the rash comment. The seconds ticked by as Gordon stood up from the table, the room still hushed. The restaurant staff watched nervously from the corners of the room, unsure of what was about to happen. Was this the moment Gordon would unleash his fury? Would he make an example of Alex in front of everyone? Gordon's voice, however, was surprisingly calm. "Alex," he said, his tone steady but filled with authority. "Do you have any idea who you just insulted?" Alex's throat tightened, and he could feel the color drain from his face. His mind raced for an excuse, a way out, but nothing came. He swallowed hard. I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I didn't know. I didn't mean it like that." But Gordon was already shaking his head. "It's not about your intentions, Alex. It's about respect. Do you think I got here by playing games and making jokes about people who have built their careers? Do you think I spent decades earning my place in this industry just to be reduced to some TV personality who yells at people?" Alex was now struggling to breathe. His stomach was in knots, his hands trembling slightly. He realized what he had done, and the regret hit him like a wave. But Gordon wasn't shouting. He wasn't reacting the way Alex had expected. There was no anger, no fury, just a quiet disappointment that cut through the air. Gordon continued, his voice still calm, but heavy with meaning. "I've spent my life working to create something meaningful. This restaurant, it's my heart, it's my legacy, and I don't take disrespect lightly, especially not from someone who's just starting out. So let me ask you this. What makes you think you can judge me, or anyone else for that matter, when you've only been here for a few weeks?" The weight of Gordon's words pressed down on Alex. He wanted to apologize again, to explain himself, but the truth was, he didn't have a good excuse. He had insulted Gordon Ramsay, not just the celebrity, but the man who had built an empire. And he had done it thoughtlessly, without understanding the impact of what he had said. Gordon stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle, his gaze never leaving Alex. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Gordon took a deep breath and said, "Here's the deal, Alex. You've got two choices. You can walk out the door right now, and I'll never have to see you again. Or you can stay. You can learn. And you can prove that you understand what respect really means in this business. The choice is yours." The restaurant staff waited in anticipation, wondering what Alex would do. They all knew this was a defining moment, not just for him, but for the culture of the restaurant. Alex's decision would show whether he could rise to the challenge or let his mistake define him. The silence was unbearable. Alex's heart was racing, his thoughts a chaotic mess as he stood frozen, staring up at Gordon. He had never felt so small, so exposed. His eyes flickered around the room, but it was like the entire restaurant was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Some part of him expected Gordon to explode, to yell, to shame him in front of everyone. This was Gordon Ramsay, after all. He had seen the chef tear into contestants on his shows, reducing them to tears. And here he was, staring down at Alex like a hawk about to strike. But Gordon didn't yell. There were no curses, no threats, no public humiliation. There was only that long, uncomfortable pause where Alex felt every second stretch into eternity. The quiet power in Gordon's gaze made him feel like a child caught in a lie. He had no idea how to fix this, how to undo the damage. He could feel his stomach twist in knots, and for the first time in his life, he realized how damaging words could be. Gordon's voice finally cut through the stillness, but it was calm, almost unnervingly calm. "I'll give you one thing, Alex. You're not running away from this. And that tells me you're not as soft as you seem. I like that." Alex opened his mouth to apologize again, but nothing came out. What could he say? What was the right thing to say? He had insulted the very person who had made this place possible, the person who had poured his blood, sweat, and tears into building an empire. He had no excuse. I'm sorry," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. "I shouldn't have said that. It was stupid. I never should have judged you like that." Gordon's eyes softened for a moment, just the slightest flicker of understanding in them. "You're not the first one to talk trash behind my back, and you won't be the last. Hell, it's easy to criticize someone when you don't understand the grind, the sleepless nights, the sacrifice it takes to build something like this. But it's not about me. It's about what you stand for." Alex's heart thudded in his chest. He didn't understand what Gordon meant. "What do you mean?" he asked, barely daring to speak. Gordon exhaled, then motioned around the restaurant. "This place, this kitchen, this team, they've all been through the fire. Every single person who works here has earned their right to be here, and it's my job to make sure they stay at the top of their game. But respect, that's earned too. And I'm giving you a chance right now, Alex, to earn my respect back." The weight of those words hit Alex harder than anything else. He wasn't just being offered a second chance in his career. He was being given a chance to redeem himself as a person. In that moment, Alex knew that this wasn't just about a simple apology. It was about his entire future in this industry. Gordon wasn't just offering a chance to continue working. He was giving Alex a chance to prove himself. Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I'll prove it to you," he said, determination slowly replacing the panic in his chest. "I won't let you down again. I'll work harder than ever." Gordon's face softened slightly, but his eyes remained sharp. "Good. I don't expect perfection, but I do expect you to show up, to give your all, every day. You're here because you have the potential to be better than the average. But you have to understand that you're not just working in a kitchen, you're part of something bigger, and if you can't respect that, then you're out the door." Alex nodded vigorously. "I understand. I respect that. I promise I won't waste this chance." Gordon gave him a long look, as if weighing his sincerity. For a moment, it felt like Alex's life was hanging in the balance. He had already made the biggest mistake of his career, and now it was up to him to make sure he didn't repeat it. Gordon finally broke the silence with a simple, "Good. Now, get back to work." Alex's legs felt shaky, but he forced himself to walk back to the service area. As he passed by the other waitstaff, he could feel their eyes on him, but for the first time, it wasn't judgment he felt. It was something else, something like respect. Word of the confrontation had spread quickly. The staff, who had been watching the exchange from a distance, now looked at Alex differently. They had seen Gordon's anger before, seen him tear into people without mercy. But they had also seen him give second chances to those who truly wanted to change. Alex had earned that chance. For the rest of the night, Alex worked like a man possessed. He was determined to prove Gordon right, to show that he was capable of living up to the standards of this prestigious restaurant. His movements were precise, his attention to detail unwavering. Every plate he carried, every guest he served, every moment in the kitchen, he gave it his all. He wasn't just going through the motions anymore. He was fighting to earn back the respect he had lost. With every step, he could feel the eyes of the staff on him, watching to see if he would falter, but he refused to let them down. As the night went on, Gordon moved around the restaurant, inspecting each dish, checking in with his staff, making sure everything was perfect. Alex kept his head down, focused on his work, determined to stay out of the spotlight. But he could feel Gordon's presence, the weight of the chef's expectations on his shoulders. And in some strange way, it motivated him more than anything else could. He wasn't just working for the job anymore. He was working for something greater, redemption. As the last course was cleared from the final table, Gordon approached Alex. The tension from earlier still hung in the air, but now it felt different, like a challenge had been accepted and something had changed. Gordon stood next to Alex for a moment, looking around the restaurant, taking in the scene. Finally, he spoke, his voice lower than before, less intense, but still carrying authority. "You didn't mess up tonight," he said simply, "but this is just the beginning. Tomorrow, you start fresh, you keep showing up, you keep earning it." Alex nodded, his chest swelling with a mix of pride and determination. "I will. Thank you, Gordon. I won't let you down." Gordon clapped him on the back, a small but meaningful gesture that told Alex everything he needed to know. "Prove it." As Alex walked to the back of the restaurant to change out of his uniform, he couldn't help but reflect on what had just happened. He had been given a second chance. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on him. He knew that in the world of high-end restaurants, there was no room for failure. But this wasn't just about the job. It was about something deeper, something more personal. It was about earning respect, proving his worth, and showing that he had the drive to succeed, no matter the mistakes he had made along the way. The next morning, Alex woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just a new day, it was a fresh start. He had learned that there was more to being part of Gordon Ramsay's restaurant than just following orders. It was about respecting the craft, respecting the people around him, and respecting the hard work that went into every meal, every moment. And now, Alex was ready to prove that he could be a part of something greater than himself. He was ready to show Gordon Ramsay, his colleagues, and himself that he deserved to be there. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. For Alex, each shift was both a challenge and an opportunity. Every morning, he woke up with a single purpose in mind: to prove to Gordon, to his team, and most importantly, to himself, that he was capable of earning the respect he had initially lost. He arrived at the restaurant early, as usual, before most of the staff, determined to put in the effort necessary to catch up and make up for his earlier mistake. The pressure was on, and he felt it every day. But this time, it wasn't the fear of failure that drove him. It was the desire to make things right. The first few days after the confrontation were the hardest. Every time Alex interacted with a guest, every time he served a dish, he could feel the weight of Gordon's eyes on him. It wasn't the same harsh glare he had received earlier, but it wasn't exactly encouragement either. Gordon's reputation wasn't built on giving out compliments easily. But that made it all the more meaningful when one day, after a particularly busy shift, Gordon walked up to him at the end of the night as Alex was cleaning up his station. "You did well tonight," Gordon said, his voice gruff but tinged with something else, a hint of approval. "Kept your head down, didn't get distracted. That's the kind of focus I like to see." Alex, stunned, stopped for a moment, unsure if he had heard correctly. Gordon Ramsay didn't hand out praise lightly, and hearing that from him, after everything that had happened, felt like a small victory. "Thanks, Gordon," Alex said, his voice a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "I'm doing my best to show I belong here." Gordon nodded. "Just don't get cocky. That's when you slip up. Keep that hunger in your gut, the same hunger you had when you first walked in here. But remember, this kitchen isn't a place for egos. It's about the team, always." As Gordon walked away, Alex felt a sense of accomplishment settle in. It was a small step, but it was progress. It wasn't the loud public victory he had imagined, but it was exactly what he needed. It was Gordon's way of telling him he had earned a little trust back. And trust, in this world, was everything. Days turned into weeks, and Alex kept working harder, focusing on the details that mattered most. He watched how every single member of the team operated. He observed the rhythm of the kitchen, the way the chefs communicated with each other, how they read each other's movements without speaking, the silent understanding that existed among them. Every task had its own level of precision. Every plate that left the kitchen had to be perfect. It wasn't just about following instructions. It was about anticipating needs, about being proactive rather than reactive. That's what Gordon demanded, and it was what Alex was starting to embrace. The tension that had once hung over him gradually began to dissipate. He wasn't looking over his shoulder anymore, waiting for someone to call him out. He could feel the respect growing from his colleagues as he proved himself, one plate at a time, one service at a time. He wasn't just fitting in, he was becoming an integral part of the team. One evening, as the restaurant began to wind down, Alex was tasked with bringing Gordon's favorite dish to his table, a personal request from the chef himself. Alex had been assigned this responsibility before, but this time it felt different. There was something more personal in the way Gordon had asked for it. It wasn't a show of dominance. It wasn't a test. It was a gesture of trust, one that Alex didn't take lightly. As he made his way through the dining area, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. This was more than just serving food. It was symbolic. Gordon had asked him to serve his dish, the one that represented years of meticulous work. And Alex knew that it was his moment to show how far he had come. He reached Gordon's table, where the man was sitting quietly, his eyes scanning the room as he surveyed the restaurant's energy. Alex placed the dish in front of Gordon with a steady hand, ensuring everything was perfect, every detail accounted for. He stood there for a moment, waiting for a response, his heart in his throat. Gordon looked at the plate, then up at Alex. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Alex's stomach tightened, but he kept his posture confident, trying to stay composed. Finally, Gordon took a bite, and Alex held his breath, waiting for the verdict. Gordon's eyes narrowed as he chewed, a familiar, calculating expression on his face. The seconds felt like hours as Alex stood there, his nerves on edge. Then, Gordon set his fork down slowly and looked up at him. "It's good," Gordon said simply, his voice quieter than usual. "Not perfect, but good. You're getting there. Keep it up." Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It wasn't an over-the-top compliment, but it was more than enough. He had earned Gordon's approval. Slowly but surely, he was making his way into the fold, earning the respect he had initially lost. But even as he felt a sense of accomplishment, Alex knew that this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. The restaurant industry wasn't a place where anyone could afford to rest on their laurels, not even for a moment. And while Gordon's approval meant a lot, he knew that he would have to keep proving himself day in and day out. Every plate, every guest, every shift, it all had to be perfect. There was no room for complacency, no room for taking things for granted. Gordon had shown him that. And it was a lesson that Alex would carry with him for the rest of his career. As the weeks turned into months, the restaurant continued to thrive, and Alex continued to prove himself. The respect that had once been so hard to come by was now a part of his daily experience. He moved with the same confidence and precision as his colleagues, no longer the nervous newcomer, but a part of the core team that made the restaurant what it was. The day-to-day grind had become second nature, and the sense of accomplishment Alex felt grew with every shift, every challenge he overcame. Gordon, for his part, remained the same, demanding, tough, but fair. He would still occasionally call out Alex for small mistakes, but the way he did it had changed. It wasn't the harsh scolding of the past. It was more of a mentor's critique, a way to help Alex grow. Alex had earned his place in Gordon's world, and now he was being shaped into someone who could one day lead with the same passion and dedication that Gordon himself had shown. There were moments when Alex would catch himself looking back at how far he had come. From the nervous rookie who had insulted Gordon Ramsay to the confident, skilled member of the team who now commanded the kitchen with a steady hand. It hadn't been an easy road, but it had been one worth traveling. And every day, every plate, every step forward was a reminder that mistakes didn't define him. How he handled those mistakes, how he learned from them, and how he chose to grow was what truly mattered. In that moment, Alex understood the power of second chances. He had been given one, and he wasn't going to waste it. The restaurant was his proving ground, but it was also a place where he had learned that failure was never the end. It was simply the beginning of something new. And now, as he moved forward, Alex knew that his journey was just beginning. Gordon Ramsay had taught him one of the most important lessons of all. Greatness wasn't about being perfect. It was about persistence, respect, and the willingness to keep pushing no matter the obstacles in your path. And with that lesson, Alex was ready to take on whatever the future had in store. As the months passed, Alex's journey at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant transformed him. Not just as a chef, but as a person. He was no longer the nervous rookie who had once made a careless remark about the very man who had built the empire he was now a part of. The lessons he had learned, both the hard and the rewarding, had shaped him into someone who truly understood what it meant to respect the craft, the people around him, and the importance of hard work. The quiet moments of learning, the late nights in the kitchen, and the times he had felt like giving up but kept going, had all led to this moment. He wasn't just part of the team anymore. He was an integral piece of it. Gordon had taught him what it meant to put your heart into your work, to give everything for the sake of something greater than yourself. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the passion behind it, the attention to detail, and the desire to constantly be better than you were yesterday. Alex had learned to stand tall in the face of challenges, to accept criticism without letting it define him, and to rise above the mistakes he had made in the past. But more importantly, he had learned that failure was never the end. It was an opportunity to start fresh, to reinvent yourself, and to do better. One evening, after another flawless service, as the team gathered in the back to wrap up for the night, Gordon approached Alex once again. It wasn't the typical critique that Alex had grown accustomed to. This time, there was something different in Gordon's eyes, something that felt like approval. Alex had spent months working for this, and now it felt like it was finally within his reach. "You've come a long way, Alex," Gordon said, his voice gruff but filled with sincerity. "I've seen a lot of people come and go in this business, but you've got something special. You've earned your place here." The words struck Alex in a way he couldn't quite describe. He wasn't used to hearing Gordon speak this way, especially not after all the hard lessons he had endured. But tonight, there was no harsh critique, no sharp words, just respect. Respect from the very man who had given him that second chance. It was a moment of quiet pride, and it was enough to remind Alex why he had kept pushing, even when the road had felt long and uncertain. Gordon clapped him on the shoulder before turning to head back to the kitchen. "Keep at it, kid. The real work starts now." That night, as Alex cleaned up his station and looked around the restaurant, he felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. This was more than just a job. It was a calling. It was the culmination of everything he had fought for, everything he had learned. And the best part? He knew he wasn't done yet. There was still so much to learn, so many challenges to face, and so much room to grow. But this time, Alex didn't fear the future. He was ready for it. He understood that no matter what, he would keep showing up, keep improving, and keep earning that respect. Not just from Gordon, not just from his team, but from himself. Every day, every moment, every plate was an opportunity to prove his worth. This journey wasn't just about being part of Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. It was about proving to the world and to himself that he could rise above his past mistakes, that he could keep pushing forward even when the odds were stacked against him. And through it all, the most important lesson he learned was this: you don't have to be perfect to succeed, but you have to be persistent. You have to keep working, keep learning, and most importantly, never give up. As he locked up for the night, Alex felt the weight of all his hard work finally sinking in. He had taken the hard road, made mistakes, and learned from them. He had earned his place not just in the restaurant, but in his own life. And now, every day moving forward, he would walk into that kitchen with a sense of purpose, a renewed dedication to his craft, and an unwavering belief that anything was possible. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever made a mistake that you thought might ruin your chances, only to realize that it was a lesson that helped you grow? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn? Leave a comment below and share your story. Sometimes the hardest challenges lead to the greatest triumphs, and your journey might inspire someone else to keep going when things get tough. So, what's your story of resilience, and how will you keep pushing forward?